is Will Howard a Cardinal after the draft? Is Kyle McCord a Cardinal after the draft? Like, we're joking here, but kind of not completely, not tongue-in-cheek here. They've drafted 2 Ohio State first-round caliber players. Yes, they were the best available. They've added an offensive line coach from Ohio State. Clearly, there's a love affair with that university, and I'm all here for it. Some bird droppings here on a football Saturday. We were mourning the departure, Bo Brock, of Klayton Adams, who is now the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. Out with the old, in with the new. We'd kind of gotten tipped off Friday night that JG and company were making moves, and it was confirmed today. Justin Frye is leaving Ohio State as their offensive line coach, joining JG and company in the desert. He's been on this podcast. What do you make of it?
Well, the Cardinals dipping into a familiar source, even for the coaching ranks, as they've gone back-to-back first-round picks out of Ohio State. Now they bring in a position coach to pair back up with Paris Johnson Jr., and I think kind of an up-and-coming coach. It's kind of exciting to see them dip into an NFL factory once again, but this time the coaching ranks for a guy like Justin Frye, who's well-respected. It wasn't like his first kind of taste of the NFL. He interviewed with the Bears recently for their offensive line coaching position, and I think it's reassuring to see how quickly Jonathan Gannon was working on this. Adams, the news comes out Friday afternoon, and less than 24 hours later, the Cardinals have already filled that position coach. So they knew exactly where they wanted to go, and it seems like they got their guy just as much as the Cowboys got their guy.
At the conclusion of our Friday show, we started diving into the possibility of a replacement, and Bo, to your point, happened very quickly. I'm told it happened yesterday. I'm sure they've had a relationship for some time. Here's the deal, though. Justin Frye, I don't know if he had or not, but was supposed to interview with the Chicago Bears to be their offensive line coach. So at the timing of this recording, Bo, they have not hired an offensive line coach. And so you can kind of do your own math there. Frye opting for Arizona over Chicago. Dan Rochard, former Saints position coach, special teams coordinator, in contention now for the Bears job. But, I mean, to your point, ascending young coach, just 41 years of age, saw probably what Gannon has been able to do with younger coaches and put them in positions to succeed. Klayton Adams was not a household name 2 years ago. Suddenly he's not calling plays, but he is the OC, the default OC for the Dallas Cowboys. And, Justin Frye, he has been able to streamline a steady pipeline of offensive line talent into the NFL. And most notably, of course, here in the desert, Paris Johnson Jr. But as you noted on Twitter, Bo, John Gaines also played under Justin Frye once upon a time. And then you think about, all of the injuries that they had up front, and they never missed a beat en route to the College Football National Championship and champions this year under Ryan Day. So it's been a while since the Cardinals have been in this market, getting an ascending coach instead of a descending coach. And we had a lot of people message us like Mike Munchak. It's got to be Mike Munchak or, an older, respectfully retread. It is not. And I think this kind of goes to show everybody, like, you start connecting the dots with the Mike Zimmers and the Mike Munchaks and the Brandon Staley's. Gannon has his sights set on, let's just face it, more ascending talent in the NFL coaching ranks.
Yeah, and a talent that he trusts, that can run his scheme, can teach his brand of ball, right? And I think that Frye fits that, worked under Chip Kelly during his time with the Bruins, and then once again, as they made their way to a CFP championship this year with Kelly as the OC, I think he could bring some unique perspective there, maybe to this offense, maybe add some wrinkles to it.
Yeah.
But, really familiar with working with top tier talent, including Jonathan Gaines. And I think, maybe overlooking some that he worked with at UCLA. I'm counting 6 draft picks since 2022, and then 3 more potentially this spring that Justin Frye molded at Ohio State, including a first-round graded Josh Simmons, a second-round graded Donovan Jackson, and then their center who got hurt or injured in the season. Just like Klayton Adams, he was able to get guys to play that were backups and starring roles. I mean, you look at this past season, Johnny, they gave up 16 sacks in 16 games. I mean, that's a really efficient and strong offensive line protecting Will Howard. And Will Howard is a mobile quarterback. So, I think that it's not Kyler Murray, but he's got a little bit of insight on how to block and scheme up a guy that can get out and run.
If you want to kind of get the pulse of Columbus post this move, just search his first and last name, Justin Frye, in Google. And the first article that comes up is Ohio State dealt bad news on Saturday with Ryan Day, the loss of their offensive line coach. So again, this is just like Klayton Adams leaving Arizona. This is a loss for Ohio State. And this is a young man, again, that, middle-aged, 41 years old, that has an opportunity to come in and make a name for himself under Gannon and company. You mentioned the pipeline of, offensive linemen that he has coming into the NFL in this specific draft. I mean, a lot of people are already connecting the dots. I would rather just connect the dots of the Cardinals are just full Ohio State Cardinals now, or Arizona Cardinal Buckeyes, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
What is the likelihood now? You may scoff at this. Is Will Howard a Cardinal after the draft? Is Kyle McCord a Cardinal after the draft? We're joking here, but kind of not completely, not tongue in cheek here. They've drafted 2 Ohio State first round caliber players. Yes, they were the best available. They've added an offensive line coach from Ohio State. Clearly, there's a love affair with that university, and I'm all here for it. I would rather let's be in bed with the university that's winning natties and competing and churning out high level draft picks over, respectfully, UMass, Boston College, Clemson on the tail end of their, success run. Howie Roseman has the Georgia Bulldogs. Arizona Cardinals now have Ohio State.
Yeah, and in the most recent, college football power, the one that got the job done this year, and I think is innovative as far as the changing of college football and really turning it into a true NFL minor leagues. And who's embraced that the most and turned themselves into, the precursor to playing professionally? I think it's Ohio State, regardless of what you want to say about Ryan Day, his ability or inability to beat Michigan. But this is a team that year in and year out, I mean, they've got deep, robust draft classes, and this is going to be about as deep as it gets. So, I mean, it might be looked at as, lazy, easy connecting the dots, but look, they can go as deep as 16 players from their current class that could have their name called in the 3-day draft span. And I think certainly you'll find some former Buckeyes turned current Arizona Cardinals come, late April. And one thing I will say, Klayton Adams, I didn't envision him ever getting what the next opportunity was going to be. I didn't think it was going to be the offensive coordinator of Dallas Cowboys. I get the sense that Justin Frye, I think he's pretty content being a position coach. He seems like he's been an offensive line coach, and it's not like he lacks aspirations. I think he's just an offensive line guy. I think, this could be his dream job. I don't see him moving on for, it being a stepping stone for something like an OC gig beyond the Cardinals.
Well, it's a true position coach in the sense of developing players, right?
Yeah.
Not with an edge, to your point of how am I going to weasel my way into, and some people may love this idea, overcoming Drew Petzing and calling plays for the Cardinals. He's been an offensive line coach since 2011 at Temple. Then he went to Boston College, as I rip on Boston College on this podcast, 2013 to 2017. He was at UCLA for 3 years before promotion. So actually, he was Josh Rosen's offensive line coach, I believe, in his last year at UCLA, if that sounds right. Then he was the OC from 2019 to 2021 at UCLA. And then, of course, the best job that he's had at the collegiate level, of course, coaching Ohio State's offensive line these last 2 years when they were a perennial power. And now with the Arizona Cardinals. Bo, I looked up something you posted on Twitter here. Sacks allowed under Justin Frye dating back to 2022. And again, Will Howard, Kyle McCord, not the most mobile guys. 16 this past year, which is outstanding considering how many games does Ohio State play? 15 games this year, almost a sack a game allowed. 23 last year, and then 12 the year before. And so
that was Paris's year.
Yeah, and speaking of that, it's just I thought Albert Breer had a really good tweet. This is not good podcasting. As I pulled up here, this is more than just offensive line play for the Cardinals. This is from Breer. He said that he got Josh Simmons a San Diego State transfer who went from an afterthought into a first-round tackle, basically helped him overachieve. And then there was some additional insight from Pete Thamel from College Football ESPN, basically breaking down it's going to give the Cardinals an edge, evaluating prospects from not only Ohio State, from Michigan, from all of those Big Ten juggernauts. They're going to have a guy who was, boots on the ground, recruited all these guys. Yeah. I mean, when he was on our show, what was that, last year, 2 years ago? He was recruiting. He was in his car recruiting. So he's seen these guys for the past 2 to 3 years. And I think, I would put the over-under on Big Ten, either the offensive or defensive lineman drafted this year for the Arizona Cardinals. Let's put it at a very conservative 1.5 and give me the over.
Yeah. And you want the insight to your point, like Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham. If you're, I don't know if you're going to be on the fence on those two interior defenders, or the edge prospect. Was it Josiah Stewart coming off the edge for the Wolverines? Like, he's played against them and coached against them the last 3 years. So he's going to be invaluable as far as his insight goes there. One more, I do get the feeling that with this hire that they would be more apt to stay young at the position instead of going in unless they do land a Trey Smith. But I think one of the two vacancies on their offensive line will be filled with a younger player, whether it's the other interior guard spot or the opening at tackle. And then the last point, I saw this from Josh Weinfuss, who reached out, to a source with the Cardinals about, and I'll paraphrase saying, like, the secret's out about how talented the coaching staff is for the Arizona Cardinals. Like, they're very well aware of it, and the league is very well aware of it as far as the talent. And you see just the 4 guys that were either targeted, interviewed, or even poached, like Klayton Adams and Sam Seifkes were, but if it's met with, and I believe it's going to be, with Jonathan Gannon, bittersweet losing coaches, his ability to bring in, the next guy who's also going to probably gain some traction. And that's just going to be, one of those things that just becomes a revolving door of talented, coaches coming in and out of the facility, which not necessarily the case as we outlined on Friday's show.
No, and I don't like to dog on ex-Cardinal coaches, and Cliff Kingsbury had a phenomenal year, but this was probably the biggest weakness in Cliff's game, was the ability to build a staff. And he didn't lose coaches throughout his tenure, but I mean, a lot of those coaches, sans Vance Joseph, or maybe out of work, or certainly don't have the same role they had with the Arizona Cardinals unless they were holdovers. It just shows you, like, Monty Austin-Ford's got a big offseason coming up here. And I'm told Austin-Ford helped spearhead this as well. They had to cut the check. They had to make sure that Justin Frye was paid accordingly, right? They couldn't nickel and dime him. I also think, like, nobody will – it was a tough week, like, for – like Bidwell in the conversation, he's inducted in the Arizona Sports Hall of Fame. But, like, this is where people who are maybe uneducated on how the Cardinals choose to operate financially, and I know their locker rooms suck and they're not good enough. Like, this is where you can get cheap, and the Cardinals didn't, right? This is where, like, maybe the Bengals would do this, or the Cardinals outbid probably several other teams and got him to leave his family, uproot his life and uproot his family from Columbus, where he's been and had immense success, to Arizona. We're not doing that just because, hey, this NFL job is open. They had to pay him. They had to pay him accordingly, right? I'm told it was a sizable amount. So that's where, like, the people who are very much of the mindset, like, Bidwell's cheap, they'll never – no, like, this will never get a headline. It'll never come farther than this podcast here, Bo. But – if they were cheap, they wouldn't have been able to get good people at the end of the day, right? Like, I'm sure, they're a winning season after this year from giving out promotions and extensions, but no one wants to talk about that, which is totally fine. But I just thought that was an interesting piece. It was like, what happened to the Cardinals not spending any money? And there's such a huge difference. And we hope to God that Austin-Ford, he needs to spend money in March. Yeah. The money for the coaching staff does not come out of your salary cap, Bo. Where does it come from? It comes from your owner.
Right. And it's a bit of a misconception. I think if you just get buy-in from ownership, that you saw it with Bruce Arians, who had one of the bigger coaching staffs in the league. He had a couple extra coaches on it. If you get buy-in from Bidwell, especially on the direction of things, he's willing to invest in it, whether it's, the roster or the coaching staff. And then at some point you hope the facilities, because they're still lacking, and we'll see what they look like, once the grades come out, if they've made any improvements that we're unaware of.
Yeah. Drop us a like, give us your comments down below. What do you think about the hiring, and are the Cardinals now poised to maybe take more Ohio State players than they were ever before? Subscribe here to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. And remember, your boys had it first year. We're back on a football Monday. Bo and Damon and company leave for NOLA tomorrow, mañana on Sunday. I'm joining the gang on Tuesday night. And man, oh man, what a banner week of guest content and coverage coming up from Super Bowl. For Bo, I'm Johnny. We'll see you soon.